What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Destination the Show. This is episode 87, and we are updating the Twins' top 20 prospects before the trade deadline. My name is Jamie Cameron, joined as always by Jeremy Nygaard. Jeremy, the draft is in the rearview mirror. We had a bunch of Twins signing details and bonuses come out today. And we are approaching a very interesting, exciting time of year in the baseball calendar. How are you doing? What's your baseball energy? I feel like there's always a little bit of a come down after the draft. Where are you at? Are you just fully ignoring baseball? What's your deal at the moment?
No, this is a good time for baseball for me.
Okay.
Because it like you said, the draft, now we're gonna get trade deadline, we're gonna get signing deadline, right? Yep. So there's a lot of stuff that happens kind of here at the end of July.
Yep.
Plan to go to Monday's game, I think Guardians maybe.
Sure.
So
Nats.
Nationals, that's what it is. We saw the Nationals play last year, and it was Woods Richardson, I think, that pitched, and they got beat. So, I mean, it's always this is an interesting time just because so many teams have to kind of determine how they're going to play out this season.
Yep.
And so we'll talk more about that. But I do enjoy this time. You know, it's post NBA, pre NFL.
Yep.
And this is kind of the time when baseball shares the spotlight with only the WNBA, right?
Yep.
And it's a good time. So I'm excited to talk about these prospect lists and the trade deadline as well.
All right, let's get some housekeeping out the way, and then we're going to start running through all of the things. We'll give a little bit of an overview of how we'll try and handle the time tonight. So, usual housekeeping stuff, ways that you can support the show by liking and subscribing on your preferred podcast platform of choice. Downloads help us a ton. You can find all of our stuff on YouTube at Destination. The show is the handle there. If you're a sucker for punishment, you want to see our faces. If you want to get in touch with us and ask questions, we always enjoy and appreciate that, as many people continue to do. Twitter, the handle is at DTS_pod1. On Blue Sky at Destination the Show, or send us an email, destinationtheshow@gmail.com. All right, here's what we're going to cover today, dude. So, as you already alluded to, we are, and the title of this episode alludes to, we wanted to dig in and update our personal top 20 Twins prospect list before the trade deadline happens, because it does seem that the Twins are inching towards being on a particular side of that. We'll talk a little bit about that too, about the trade deadline, how that might look for the Twins, what you might do. We'll finish up with some listener questions. But yeah, before we jump into the top prospect list, why don't we talk a little bit about some draft stuff just to wrap up? So I text you this not 20 minutes ago, and this is kind of a shocker, but I just want to get your take quick. Number 50 overall pick, Angel Cervantes, who we talked about on this podcast many times as a potential target and fit that we like for the Twins, deciding not to sign with the Pirates. That is a $1.9 million slot bonus they're losing from their pool this year. They will get a compensation pick the pick after next year. What are your thoughts, man? Well, that's a shocker.
Well, it's still early, right? And so when we had this same conversation last year about the Brewers pick, it was later. It was this is how things are looking.
Yep.
But sometimes it's posturing, right? And to say, nope, I'm not going to go. I'm going to go there instead. School doesn't start, right? Mm-hmm. So they can actually, they can sign up until the deadline. The Twins example is Eddie Julian was a 17th round pick or whatever out of Auburn. And he did the exact same thing. Went on Twitter, said, can't wait to be back. And then all of a sudden the Twins offered him more money, and he was like, oh, yeah, okay, great. So he's not committing to anything by tweeting out, can't wait to show up to wherever he's committed.
Yep.
But yeah, it would be kind of a huge upset. I don't know. I haven't looked since you sent me that message if the Pirates had contingency plans.
They do.
So I mean,
they do, but they're not great contingency plans.
Well, and that's the thing, right? If you're not going to take a guy 50 and then take somebody else in the 19th round or the 20th round, that's going to get the same amount. It's going to be a couple of guys that maybe you weren't going to sign. You could spread it out. But yeah, losing they had with him and Hernandez, those are some really good prep arms. And if you miss out on one of them, that becomes a bummer.
Such a bummer. Let's touch on the Twins signing stuff. Honestly, this might get you a little caught up too, because I know you've been in the thick of things, in the weeds with work and new job and all that good stuff. So we got a bunch of Twins signing news today. Here's kind of the latest. The Twins have announced deals with 19 of their 21 picks so far. I think the highlights that we can talk through there: Marek Houston, their first pick, 16th overall, came in about $400,000 under slot. Most of those savings went to James Ellwanger, who was their third round pick, who agreed to a $1 million deal, which is about $110,000 over slot. And then Matt Barr was where the significant savings were applied to. His slot in the fifth round was $475,000. He agreed to a deal for $762,500. Guys like Riley Quick, Quentin Young agreed for full slot bonuses. Were you surprised at all that Quentin Young was slot of 54? His slot was $1.761 million. That struck me as a little low, but I mean, great for the Twins.
Yeah, a little bit. I think you always assume that prep guys are going to take more than slot. Right. Yep. And so when they're only slot, that's a pleasant surprise. So yeah, that did surprise me a little bit.
Yep. So just scooting down to rounds 11 through 20, the Twins did go over the allocated $150,000 on two players. Colton Smith, right-handed pitcher out of Georgia, in round 12. They agreed to a deal with him for $200,000, so $50,000 of that will count against their bonus pool. And then Callan Fang, an additional $27,500, right-handed pitcher out of Harvard. As of this moment right now, there's two players with whom the Twins have not agreed to deals with. That is sixth rounder Bruin Agbayani, son of Benny, committed to Michigan, out of Hawaii, prep shortstop, and then 16th rounder Jonathan Stevens, who you and I have texted about back and forth, has been one of the most legitimately challenging folks to find information on because he didn't pitch in college yet. So those are the only two unsigned guys. By my very crude math, the Twins have around a smidge over $400,000 left before they go into the overage, which they never do. I did the math earlier twice and texted with Seth about it.
Have you guys come to an agreement?
Yes, I think we have. Yeah.
Okay. So where I have them is with their signed picks.
Yep.
So taking Agbayani's money out and then adding, so they went over on 4 guys, right? And then they were under on 5 guys. Mm-hmm. I have them as having about $39,000 under right now.
But you took Agbayani, you took Bruin, you took his slot out of your calculation?
Yes.
Okay, so that's right. So if you added that $39,000 to the $361,000 slot value, that brings us to a smidge over $400,000, which is what I'm saying they have left too.
Okay.
So we're just calculating it in a different way. So the long and the short of it is, if Stevens were to take $150,000, which is the max they can offer him without digging into the pool, they would have a hair over $400,000 for Agbayani. A lot of people have been tweet replying about the last two guys. Here's the two things I'll say. Number one, I believe the signing deadline is 5 p.m. on July 28th. So we're a full 5 days out from them. And then number two, I would say folks should be extremely, extremely confident that the Twins are going to come to a full agreement with every single one of their draft picks this year.
Okay. That's all that hasn't happened probably ever.
I know, right?
The COVID 2025 round draft.
Yep. So that'll be fun. And I think we'll start to get a look at guys, the hitters, in Fort Myers sooner than later. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, dude, let's jump into top prospect lists. We're going to do this the same way that we always do it, and we'll roll through the format first. We're going to go through slot by slot of our rankings, 1 through 20, and we'll go through some kind of disagreements, some rationale along the way. And we're deliberately doing this before the trade deadline happens because we're preparing for the possibility that the Twins farm system changes. There's potentially some additions to be made here. Anything you want to kind of talk through or voice over before we jump into these lists?
Yeah, I think one thing when you look at any prospect list, they're always going to be skewed, obviously by personal preference.
Yep.
Right. But also kind of how one views upside versus floor versus how close they are to the majors versus how far they are to the majors. I will always, I feel like mine are always skewed towards upside, right?
Okay.
And so there's going to be a couple times where you probably shake your head because of what I say.
That's just my normal reaction to you saying anything, though.
Which is true. But if it's two guys that are closer, like if I'm like, okay, either one, almost always it's going to be the guy that I think has a higher upside, not necessarily that his chances of being great are better. I just think the best possible outcome is higher, if that makes sense.
I feel that. Okay, I like that. So you're leaning into like naming your kind of personal biases. So let me do the same. I would say I probably align myself with that too. I would also add I try not to be too volatile with my rankings. Like for me in my list, you're not going to see tons and tons of movement in the top couple, even though there's some notable injuries or slow performances or whatever. I'm not going to be really, really quick to move those guys around. And then the other thing I would say is my like anti-bias is I definitely undervalue value that's accrued by defense. Like if you tell me there's a guy who's like a 70 grade defender, I don't think I do a good job of like building in that value very well, as we may discuss when we get to Marek Houston. So that's my 2 cents. Okay, let's get into it here, dude. So number 1 on your top 20 prospect list is
Walker Jenkins. Not because he's done so much to solidify it, but because he's got the highest upside and has been a little injured, but now he's back and playing well. So not a lot of thought had to go into this one, even though 2 is closer to 1 than it was earlier in the year.
Fair enough. Yeah, so just to recap on Jenkins, 20 years old at AA, and someone tweeted me about this yesterday and was like, I've been so much more impressed with Kaelen Culpepper than Walker Jenkins. Well, Walker Jenkins will be a college sophomore, and he's playing in AA this year. 26 games, he's sporting a 138 WRC plus, walking over 15% of the time, striking out just 17% of the time. I think the thing that you can choose to ding him for, if you want to, that I am not, is we haven't seen a ton of extra base power. We haven't seen a ton of home run power yet. That is the kind of ping he's got from a lot of outlets, but I'm not pinging him for that until he's 22. Like that is what a lot of the kind of research I think points to. Like you see the biggest gains in like exit velocity and strength up until age 22. So he is also my number 1 guy. We're aligned on 1 at least.
Okay. So before we move on from him, let's just talk a couple other things.
Yeah.
I haven't thrown this at you, but let's talk about when Walker Jenkins debuts.
Yep.
It's not going to happen in 2025.
Agreed. I do agree.
2026, though, is entirely fair.
2026 is more than fair. I think that's the expectation. So let's put the giant, like, big asterisk there, right, of, like, health governs all. And he is struggled to stay on the field. Like it's been an injury in each of his 2 full pro seasons that have kept him off for a couple of months. If he stays healthy and performs through the rest of this year, I'd expect him to start 2026 at AAA. And then it's just a matter of, are you performing? Are you healthy? When does the opportunity come? Or when do you force the opportunity because you're playing so well you need to go?
And would you say, like, if we're talking about like median outcome, right? So I mean, there's a chance that Walker Jenkins continues to get hurt, continues to not hit for power, all of this. There's a chance that Walker Jenkins stays healthy forever. All of a sudden, the power clicks and he's an all-star and the greatest whatever. Somewhere in between, though, is the most likely outcome.
Yeah.
And would you say that I'm only doing this because I know you hate comps? Is like a fair, like median outcome?
God damn it, Jeremy.
Max Kepler.
Sure. Do you mean like in terms of like production? Like that's your comp, right? You're not saying like stylistically or like the tools are similar or whatever.
Right.
You're saying in terms of value, he's like a 2 to 3 WAR player probably as a median outcome.
Right, and he'll be a above average corner outfielder, if not center fielder. Will steal some bases. Will have a year where he hits more home runs than you expect, but for the most part, not like a power profile, right? I mean that's a fair comparison to make. If things don't do this or do this, and just kind of that he's a solid everyday regular. Certainly, we'd want more, right? We would prefer more like Kyle Tucker,
of course.
But somewhere in that range, and if you get Max Kepler, Max Kepler is a good player. He wasn't great,
for sure.
But I think that's like if Walker Jenkins just stays healthy, he's going to be Max Kepler in the major leagues.
I think that's fair at a minimum. And like the one thing I point to as like evidence of that is the stability of his performance is actually really impressive. And like this is a very like simple down way to talk about it, right? But if we compare all of his minor league games from 2024 to all of his minor league games from 2025, here's the numbers for comparison. Walk rate in 2024, 15.2%. Walk rate in 2025, 16.8%. Strikeout rate in 2024, 12.8%. This year, 17.4%. WRC plus in 2024, 141. This year, 140. WOBA last year, 395. This year, 397. He's not really eroding as he goes through the levels, which I think is really, really encouraging for a 20-year-old. And so if you want to ding him for the lack of power, I think that's fair. I think given his age and the quality of performance when he has been on the field, that's something I would kick the can down the road on. But I do think that's a fair performance outcome comp for like 50th percentile outcome, which is good. Okay, number 2. Who's your number 2, dude? You go first.
So this is kind of I think you could go one of two ways here. And I went the way of Luke Keaschall only because I was very impressed by his small sample size in the major leagues. I think that took us both by surprise. On the flip side, the competition here is Emmanuel Rodriguez, who literally is hurt all the time. So for me, Luke Keaschall is prospect number 2.
Okay, so why don't we start on Keaschall? So is it fair to assume that Erod is your number 3, or is he your number 4?
He is my number 3.
Okay, so we have our 2 and 3 flipped, which I think is, I don't know, 6 to 1, half a dozen to the other, right? Let's just talk about both of these guys and go through them one at a time. I agree. I mean, look, Keaschall was incredible, but it was 7 games. And then he was done, and it was a 4.12 BABIP in 7 games. And I'm not like, I think you know, because I was constantly sending you videos of Keaschall from spring training in March. It was just like, your Jeremy was like, stop texting me videos of Keaschall taking batting practice. I do not care. But like, that's coming back down to earth. I guess the question that I have for you is, with Brooks Lee, like, beyond struggling, like he's been really, really tough recently. What do you think happens when Keaschall's done with his rehab assignment? I guess is my question. Do you think he's going back on the Twins, do you think Brooks Lee goes to St. Paul to figure it out? Do you think it depends on whether Willie Castro's still in the organization a week from now? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Ty France has a contract expiring. Willie Castro has a contract expiring. I would be shocked if neither of those guys were traded. I think that the Keaschall's return to the big leagues will correspond with the end of the month. And that he will play second base. He will play first base if France is gone. The elbow's more healed now. Maybe he could play a little outfield, like kind of fill in that Castro role. I think long term, I view him as the second baseman, right? It's like a second baseman, sometime corner outfielder type.
Yep.
And a top of the order hitter. I mean, if he doesn't have to hit 368 like he's hitting for the Twins, but a career 295 minor league hitter who had 5 stolen bases in 7 games. Like when he gets on base, he was a problem, and I think that was something that caught me by surprise.
Yep.
You know, the power that never came isn't going to come quicker now that he's recovering from a broken arm. But I think he does the little stuff in games that will endear himself to Rocco and endear himself to fans. And do I expect him to have a 1064 OPS long term? I don't. But it's a spark in a lineup that is literally always looking for a spark. Yeah, I could see Lee going down, but I don't think it's going to be because Keaschall's healthy. I think there's going to be just opportunities to fill in that lineup because there's other guys too. I mean, Miranda, Eddie Julian, Culpepper, like you've said, like he's knocking more on the door than we anticipated at that time. So these guys have to perform or they will be in St. Paul.
Yep. I just love Keaschall's profile. Like if we're stacking now an ideal lineup for the Twins, thinking about how the first 3 guys on this list that we're talking about skill sets play together. We just talked about Walker Jenkins and how well he controls the bats and controls the strike zone. Keaschall's walk rate always around 15-16%. He's going to steal 25 bases. I think the defense is maybe going to look a little ugly at second base personally, but he's going to do so many things that accrue value. I'm excited to have him. I'm excited. Like we talked about this at the time because this is when the Twins were in their first funk, and they've, with the exception of the 13-game win streak, been in a funk the entire rest of the time. He was a reason to watch in the 7-game sample where he was there. He was literally the most compelling player to watch on the field. So excited to see him back ASAP, however that comes about. Let's talk about, speaking of good walk rates, let's talk about the next guy on the list. Your number 3, my number 2 is Emmanuel Rodriguez. We'll quickly touch on his numbers and then we can kind of talk about what the prognostication is here, right? So we'll start with the base numbers, then we'll talk about the health. So at AAA so far this year, walking 19.4% of the time, 33% strikeout rate. I mean, it's a true like 3 outcomes guy. 43 games, 5 home runs, a 128 WRC plus. He's certainly been, I think it's fair to say, a little bit of a disappointment relative to how kind of incandescent he was, especially at AA in 2024. The other huge elephant in the room that we have to talk about is the health. In 2024, he played 47 games total. This year so far, 51, multiple IL stints in both seasons. And so I guess the question is, how much do you weigh the injury history and just like the consistent track record at this point of winding up on the injured list into his kind of long-term outcomes? How do you kind of weigh that? It feels like increasingly heavily.
Yeah. And, I think we talked early in 2024, like there was an avenue that he could have debuted last year and he was hurt. And then this year it's like, well, geez, he'll be at AAA. He'll be right there.
Right.
As long as he's healthy, he'll debut. and he's been hurt. And with what he's got now, I mean, could potentially not return. Like that missing all the games though has hurt less because Buxton's been unbelievable, right?
Unbelievable.
Harrison Bader's been a great signing from the perspective of doing exactly what the Twins need and not catching that ball today and getting him one step closer to the first pick in the draft next year. But I feel like if Buxton would be hurt, like there would be a whole lot more of wringing of the hands about Rodriguez not being healthy.
Yeah.
Dude's still only 22 years old, so he can kind of make up for it by playing next year and being healthy on the 40 man for the first time, but I think would be eligible for a 4th-year option. So there's time, right? Time is on his side. He's just got to be in the box and playing, right? But I do think he should still fit long term into the plans. I talked a lot about trading him if the Twins are ever buying, but I think at this point it's more the opposite. So you just you gotta hold him. His value is not super high right now, but he's still a top 50 prospect. And I think it's discouraging that he's been as injured as he has been, but get him healthy, get him through spring training, get him in St. Paul next year, and he could be up, and Jenkins could be up with Buxton in the middle. That's a pretty exciting outfield.
That is pretty exciting for sure.
I will interject because I accidentally added myself at the wrong time, but I did want to talk about Rodriguez on here with you guys. From what I've heard, best case scenario for his return is the last 3 weeks of the AAA season, which is pretty much just the month of September. And that's pretty much the equivalent of the time he got called up there last year from AA Wichita to play with them. So I know I haven't shared my rankings yet, but because of how injured he has been and how slow he was out the gate and really only having, I'd say, 3 or 4 good weeks here this season, I dropped him down to number 4, and I put Kaelen Culpepper above him because Culpepper has been healthy and performing.
You're not wrong.
There you go. Yeah. Well, we'll definitely talk about him in a second, and that's a great update to have. Thanks for that, Theo, on the Erod health. I mean, you're right, dude. Like both of those things are true. And I'm also coming back to the kind of acknowledged like biases, right? Of like what we value and don't value in prospects. Something I continue to appreciate about Erod is he is good enough to, at least in the medium term, before you jump on me, stick in center field. I'm not saying he's going to be a plus major league center fielder, but if you put him in a corner, he could be a plus defender. It's a really good arm. He actually has decent wheels for someone who looks like he shouldn't have decent wheels. And so I think some of the supplementary tools that don't jump off the page, because we always talk about his walk rate, crazy strikeout rate, crazy power, or also get a little bit overlooked. But you're right that this is, at this point, is kind of a lost season, man.
Yeah.
And ultimately, like if you put him into a lineup that has Keaschall healthy and Lewis healthy and Jenkins healthy and Buxton healthy, like he doesn't have to, he can bat in the bottom third of the order.
Yeah.
Right? And that's going to just make that lineup longer because he's going to get on base. And I think that's kind of the nice thing about him. So right now or when healthy, he would be forced to be, I would assume he probably bats leadoff a ton. That he's not going to be a leadoff hitter in the major leagues. He won't need to be.
Yep. Okay. Let's talk about, are we aligned, Jeremy, on number 4 on the list being 22-year-old AA shortstop Kaelen Culpepper?
Yeah.
Because his season to date definitely deserves some attention, and we should just walk through the numbers quick before you talk about why you kind of place him there and what you make of this and how he compares to the rest of the top 3. So, we've talked a lot about like injuries and the Twins are cursed and all that. You could not have asked for a better outcome in full professional year 1 than you have gotten from Kaelen Culpepper. It is almost not possible. 21st pick, who a bunch of people call boring, by the way.
Yep. Me too.
You too. So far, I'm going to do his Cedar Rapids and Wichita numbers combined. 73 games this season across 2 levels, just 20 games so far in AA. He is hitting 306, 393, 486, walking just under 11% of the time, striking out 16% of the time, 13 home runs, 18 stolen bases, a 145 WRC plus, and playing legit defense at shortstop. Do you see this coming from Culpepper? How far is he from your top three? Like, what do you make of this? It's almost going a bit too well.
Yeah. And I feel like you are like your numbers are a day off because he had another home run.
There you go.
You got 14. So
Photographs.
Debuted at Fort Myers last year and played really well in 9 games.
Yeah,
and
crushed
then
it.
Was promoted to Cedar Rapids, where, in his defense, played a whole season.
Yeah, we talked about that, right? About like fatigue being in the mix there, probably.
And fell off, and then goes back to Cedar Rapids, so where he hit 210 and 62 at bats almost 300 in 54 games. Deserves the promotion to Wichita because he was good, and I think we even talked about like, okay, but now it's Double-A, now let's see, right? And dude's been better. And it's 20 games and 84 at bats, but an OPS near 1,000 and 5 home runs, 10 walks, 14 strikeouts. Like
that's 40. That's 40 home run pace over 160 game season. By the way,
and I don't anticipate that'll be
no way,
thing, right? But and you say stay at shortstop, and I get it. Like, if he could, that'd be great. One question that I'm going to ask until it happens, which is going to be, I think, not as soon as it should. Carlos Correa moves off short and moves to third at some point, right? I mean, doesn't that just have to happen?
You would think so.
And Culpepper, like Brooks Lee, hasn't been the guy to displace him. Royce Lewis hasn't been the guy to displace him. But if Culpepper can keep doing his thing, like Culpepper to short.
Culpepper is easily a better defender than either of those guys, in my opinion.
Correa to third, and I've said it, like Royce Lewis in the outfield or Royce Lewis at first base. Makes sense. Royce Lewis looked okay at third recently. He's got a good arm. But, if the bat's not back, and it may be back, but he's been awful this year. If Culpepper can stick at shortstop and be an above-average hitter with above-average power,
that's crazy.
Like, you are talking about a top 30 global prospect. And so at that point, he does have to be in consideration. I think, again, upside, and Erod has enormous upside. And so that's kind of where I went. But Culpepper's kind of pushing the point where it's like, what is his upside? Like, he's outperforming expectations.
Big time.
So now we have to adjust what those expectations are. And now that upside is higher. So I think solidly at 4 right now. But if he finishes the season mashing at Double-A, he's going to be right up in that mix with the other 3 guys, right? Because Jenkins has fallen, being hurt. So you're talking, if he's good, he's top 5, but probably is around number 10 right now.
Yeah. Yep.
And then Keaschall and Erod probably in the 30 to 50 range.
Right.
Culpepper gets in that if he finishes this year, even not as hot as he is right now, but even sort of that hot.
Dude, you definitely stole my hot take, which was going to be top 50 prospect if he keeps this up through the rest of the season, even with some like erosion of those numbers. And I think the other thing that you didn't mention there that's in the mix, Keaschall's probably going to graduate before the end of the year if he comes back, right? So if we look at it through a slightly different lens, if Keaschall graduates and you slot Culpepper in to replace him, how do you stack those guys up together? Well, Keaschall probably more of a threat on the bases. Culpepper definitely a better defender. Power maybe about the same, like slight advantage Culpepper. Hit tool, slight advantage Keaschall maybe, but they're comparable prospects, I think. And you just don't, if you put up a 150 WRC plus at Double-A, which is supposed to be the difficult jump for 50 games in the second half of the season, I mean, more people will take notice of that. And he's jumped into the back end of, I think, 3 top 100 lists in the 90s now. But I think there's a strong case to make if he keeps this up that he's closer to 50 than 100.
Yep. I agree with that entirely.
Okay. So we've made it through 4. Boy, are we moving slow. All right. So number 5, we'll
Pick it
move
up,
quicker.
guys.
We'll move. We'll get faster when we get into the teens. So number 5, Jeremy, I can go first here. I have Connor Prielipp at number 5. And we're moving into arms territory for me. Who's your guy at 5?
Prielipp stayed at 5, or moved up to 5 for me. Is he going to be a left-handed starting pitcher? I hope so. In the short term, if the Twins trade Coolum, could he come up and be the left-handed bullpen guy? Maybe. I do still think upside is a mid to top of the rotation arm, and I would love to see it. But the biggest thing is he's made 15 starts. He's thrown 47 innings.
So very exciting.
And it's been up and down. Like the whip is 1.4, and he's only walked 11. He's given up a lot of hits, but I don't think any of it's been real hard contact, right? So I really like Connor Prielipp. You can give us some more under the hood numbers, but I think being at 5 is very reasonable.
Yeah, I think if you're not pleased with how his year has gone, you have unrealistic expectations for prospects because he stayed healthy, which is thing number 1. You mentioned the starts, just some other numbers there. His ERA is 321-ish. His supporting numbers, his underlying numbers support that. 316 FIP, 308 xFIP. He's striking out 27% of guys, walking 5.4%. I mean, that's really, really good. I think the challenge actually, and I know this is going to sound goofy, but Zebby Matthews had a similar thing. He's almost throwing too many strikes at times, Connor Prielipp, this year. And it wasn't as much of a thing when he came back and he was only throwing 30 pitches at a time. But he's been up to like 70, 71% strikes to the point where if you're living in the zone that much and you only have 3 pitches, some really good hitters are going to eliminate some of those, right? Like that nasty slider that always breaks down so hard. And people are serving his fastball for singles is mostly what I've seen. And so I think there's potential offseason decisions there around like, do you add a pitch to the arsenal here to give him a 4th option, him learning when to leave the zone, in what counts, how, where, depending on the hitter and the situation. But I don't think you can be anything but super excited and optimistic because he's still pitching and he has been on the IL once for like a blister, I think.
Yep. No, I'm excited to see where his career goes in the next couple of years.
Okay, Jeremy, who's your number 6 guy?
So number 6 is where I slotted Marek Houston in.
Ooh.
Because I think we were a little harsh on him, and you undervalue defense. But he's definitely going to be a shortstop. Will he hit for power? I'm not sure, but I think the more we talked about him, the more I read on him, the more I looked at stuff. I feel like that's a fair place to put him. And then for me, we can get into the arms.
Okay. So do you want me to give you who I put at 6 or where I put Houston? So
let's talk about Houston. So where'd you put Houston?
I put Houston at 8.
Okay.
I put Houston at 8, and here's my rationale without giving away all the other guys. For me, there are 7 Minnesota Twins prospects who have a case to make for being top 100 guys, and they either, with the exception of Prielipp, who I think is in a little bit of a tweener land with his like, is he a reliever or starter? They've either all appeared on a top 100 list, in some capacity. All of these 7 guys, I can't give a guy who's never taken a professional at bat a ranking above those 7 guys. I just can't do it until he plays. Okay. I also undervalue defense. I also have some doubts around that. I'm going to be so pleased if I'm wrong about Marek Houston's power. I believe in the rest of the stuff. Like he's going to steal 20 bases. He walks 15% of the time too. So the Twins certainly have a type in terms of controlling the strike zone. It's really good bat to ball skills. I want to say it was like 92% in zone contact. Like there's a ton to like here. The nice thing, Jeremy, is we're probably going to see him in August in Fort Myers, an area which he is very familiar with because he played around there in high school. So we're going to see sooner than later, like, do you pass like at least the first test of like, don't be terrible at low A. But do you is 8 like within the acceptable range for you for slotting Houston in?
Yeah, 100%, because the guys that you have at 6 and 7 are the guys that I have at 7 and 8.
Okay, fair enough.
I would guess that anyway.
Yeah, I hope you're right. Or
so go on with your number 6.
My number 6 is Charlee Soto. I took the 3 pitching prospects and I slotted them in order of the rung they appear on the minor league ladder currently. Now, Charlee Soto is one who I feel like could be out of sight, out of mind for people because he's been on the shelf with a forearm strain. So if you want to ding him for health, that's fine. He has only pitched 13 innings this year. He came back looking very different. Fastball command was looking much better. In 13 innings at high, it was a 1.38 ERA, a 2.56 FIP. He struck out 28% of hitters, walked 7.5. Those were both improvements. He's 19. So I just think that there is the makings of a, if you want to use the term like guy who can start a playoff game, that is the high end outcome for Charlee Soto if everything clicks. And we're a long way from that happening. But he was my guy.
Yeah,
6.
I actually didn't think you would say Soto there. I have Soto at 8.
Okay.
And mostly because he did come out and he was great in April. And then, like you said, out of sight, out of mind. And how long can a forearm strain keep you out before we wonder where this is really going?
I'm not into conspiracy theories, Jeremy. I'm not doing that with you.
He's missed part of April, all of May, all of June, and now all of July.
Yep.
And we also have a case. He's might be throwing, but also Andrew Morris has almost been out for like a month and a half with a forearm strain as well. So it's organizational wide with these forearm strains and not getting a clear timetable of return.
There you go.
So he's not the only case we can cite when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah,
I will point that.
I heard Soto was in Fort Myers doing rehab stuff. Could be off base with that, but I'm hopeful we see him back. But he was my guy at 6. I'll just keep rolling. Then you can tell me your 7, Jeremy. My 7 is Dasan Hill.
Yep, same with me.
Another guy who has appeared at the back end of top 100 lists. 6'5" left-handed pitcher, also 19 years old. 14 starts this year. Thankfully, has remained healthy and on the mound. 3.05 ERA, 3.63 FIP. Striking out 32.1% of batters. He is untouchable when he's throwing strikes at that level. No one can touch his breaking stuff. It's really, really good. The challenge has been throwing enough strikes with consistency. Like they'll come and they'll go, right? It's a 16% walk rate. I want to say he's throwing like his strike percentage is in the low 60s. You'd really want to see that like 65, 66, 67%. But I think for a 19-year-old, 6'5", left-handed kid kind of learning how to pitch professionally, adding pitches, this is a great outcome for his first professional season. What do you make of Hill's year? Any concern about the strike throwing, or anything you want to kind of chime in?
There's always a little bit of that concern, right? So
sure.
that was kind of the talk with Soto, and Soto threw 74 innings last year and had 33 walks. And right now, Dasan Hill's thrown 44 innings and has 31 walks. And so there's been way, way more of that. But for me, it's like sometimes I give lefties a little bit more love than maybe if they were just right-handed. And what is he, 6'5", 165? Like there's
he's heavier than that now for sure.
So there's some body changing, and the fact that he's taking the ball every 7 days is kind of the one knock that the reason that I went Hill over Soto was just because he's healthy right now.
Yep.
And so I'm curious to see. I think his slider's probably a little bit better than Soto's. Otherwise, they're pretty similar. Soto's fastball is probably a tick or two better than Hill's. But yeah, I think those two, especially now if Soto doesn't throw much for Cedar Rapids, like do they end up in the rotation together in Cedar Rapids next
That'd
year?
be fun.
Are they working like in tandem? Because that watching them face the same lineups would give us a little peek behind the curtains there, I think.
That'd be fun. And I think those guys are best friends actually, so that might be fun for them too.
Oh, seriously?
I think so, yeah. I think they're formed a fast connection from being down in Fort Myers in spring this year. Okay, let's talk about what are we up to now? Number 9.
Number
right?
9. So we might deviate like big time. Now
Let's go. Okay, I'll go first, and then you can tell me where you had him. We'll talk about this guy, and then we'll switch to your 9 if they're different, because they probably are.
Okay.
I put Riley Quick in at number 9.
Okay. I had Riley Quick at 10, so we're not too far off.
I can dig it. Okay, so let's talk about Quick first, right? So he signed today, full slot. I want to say it's like $2.6 million. I'm just going to walk folks through the college arsenal just a smidge. So he was working back from Tommy John this year. It's a 5-pitch mix already in college this year for Alabama, who props to Alabama because they did a great job of being conservative with his workload this year, coming back from Tommy John. Not always the case for a college program. 4-seam fastball, average 97 miles an hour. 2-seam fastball, average 97 miles an hour, tops 99, 16 inches of horizontal break. Slider, average 86 miles an hour, 35% whiff rate. Changeup, average 88.7 miles per hour, 15% or 15 inches of horizontal break, 42% whiff rate. It's 6.5 feet of extension as well, and a ground ball rate overall approaching 55%. So here's my bold Riley Quick proclamation. When you consider the health factor for various guys, I think this is maybe the best starting pitcher arm talent the Twins have taken in recent years, and they've taken some good ones. Because it's a combination of size, like literally linebacker size, is a combination of size, present stuff, and a well-developed arsenal. And I think I wrote this in like his write-up for Twins Daily. If Riley Quick, and we won't see him pitch this year, which is a bummer, but if he comes out in 2026 and stays healthy and throws enough strikes, which I think is the only real question, he will easily be one of the better pitching prospects in the low minors. And I think should make decently quick work of Fort Myers and Cedar Rapids if he throws enough strikes and stays on the mound.
Yeah.
That's aggressive, though.
I do think that you really missed the opportunity when you said he was built like a linebacker when he was recruited to be an offensive lineman in the SEC. I think all of that is right on. He's just get the opportunity to be a professional baseball player away from being in the mix with really any of these other pitchers, right? Starting with Prielipp, Hill, Soto. And I think, it's a ceiling thing, and they all 3 of those, now 4 with Quick, I think have the ability to be mid-rotation guys or better.
100%.
Right? And I think there's one more guy that fits in that category as well.
Is this your segue to saying who your number 9 is?
Yes, Marco Raya.
Okay.
And the thing with Raya is
I have him at 10, so we're kind of locked in.
Yeah, and so the reason with Raya, I mean, his last start at St. Paul was not great. 6 hits, 5 earned runs, and 4 innings. But we've always been wondering, like, when do the gloves come off? When do the kid gloves come off? His 2 previous outings, 6 innings each, gave up 1 earned run in each of those games, struck out 10 total, walked 5, not great. The 2 innings before that, or the 2 outings before that, 5 innings in each, struck out 12 in those 2 games, walked only 3, gave up 2 earned runs. Like, he's been, after a pretty dismal 3 starts, has been really good. Well, they weren't his first 3 starts, but 3 starts in May. He's been maybe not really good, but he's a 21, 22, almost 23.
20, almost 23.
Going on 23, yep.
he's almost 23 and he's pitching in AAA. Like, he's ahead of all these other guys. And maybe some of that was a little more forced. He doesn't have a ton of wear in his arms, but I think you can, and it's the not great build is going to get you comparisons to guys that are smaller. And like, you maybe have to squint a little bit harder to see it, but like, is there going to be some Jose Barrios comps at some point? Like, that's the type of pitcher he could be. Who knows? But for me, it's like he fits in with Prielipp, Hill, Soto, Quick, and Raya. You have 5 guys that to me could be a number 3 starter or better if they just kind of continue with the trajectory that they're on. And I think there's still development to do with him. And it's been a long road, but I haven't given it up yet.
Yep. Yeah, Raya's a guy who I think it's fair to say, like, we talked about this a lot with Jamie Arnold, but in the draft sense, like, there's just prospect fatigue there, right? Because it feels like he's been around forever, and he kind of has. And it's a good reminder that he's still not even 23 years old, and he's at AAA, and he's really starting to figure some stuff out. The walk rate definitely has to come down. But I think if you go back to the beginning of the season when he was having a terrible time, you would be like, ooh, like, we might be out on Marco Raya here. And I think the way you might hear someone in the Twins org talk about him now is they might say he has a chance. He has a chance to, like, make it as an MLB arm at this point, which is not something I think you could say with certainty given the start he had this year. So I think he's done a really impressive job of kind of turning his season around. And there are things that you point out, Jeremy, like the frame is smaller, but he also has other assets. Like, he can really spin the baseball. And I think, just give him a super long runway at AAA and see how things are looking at the end of the season.
I do think of the 5 we've talked about, and maybe Prielipp just because of the injuries, Raya as a bullpen guy, I think makes a lot of sense. I don't want to go there yet, but failed starters typically become pretty good relievers, and the Griffin Jacks type, for me with him, I think that makes a ton of sense. And so we'll see, but certainly continue to get, and I think we see Marco Raya in the big leagues this year.
Yep. Theo, what you got on Raya before we move on?
Well, his biggest issues were the confidence stuff, more on the mental side of the game. When he was in that, it was a 7-start stretch where everything was just blowing up on him, and then he finally turned things around. His last one coming out of the break was not terrific, but I think where he sits right now, the build-up, obviously this team's going to sell. We'll see where some of the starting pitching health is. Obviously, David Festa getting placed on the IL earlier today as we record this. That will set them back a little bit, and he's not at the point where they're going to be calling him up. I think they're going to evaluate what they do at the trade deadline. Obviously, Bailey Ober is going to be starting again on Friday, but I think there's a real possibility, as Jeremy said, we could see Raya in September. He's already on the 40-man. If they've already waved the white flag at that point, they might as well just send him up there, maybe start 4 or 5 innings just to see what he's got. But his turnaround has been terrific. His curveball has still been his nastiest pitch and is getting a lot more whiffs on that this time around compared to that bad stretch. So, yeah, I think he's still, if he's not top 10 Twins prospect, he's borderline 11, maybe 12 at worst, I think, for most people. There's still a lot of upside for him. I think obviously Jose Barrios is his common comp, but I think I once comped him to Tyler Duffy, where he could have, a really great start in the majors as a starter and then fall apart and then become a really effective reliever. So I think that's still something to keep in mind.
Right on. There's your Marco Raya update straight from St. Paul. All right. So we have Quick and Raya flipped. We're doing decently well. How about your number 11?
So I went Gabriel Gonzalez on the
he's
heels.
He's my 12.
On the heels of
God.
You writing a great article about how he's going to be a regular in the MLB. I think
That is not what it said.
He's hit the ball so well, and the Twins typically find a spot for dudes that hit. So what do we got here over the course of this season? Well, let's just do Wichita. In 49 games of Wichita, he's batting 363, 444, 523 for a 967 OPS.
It's amazing.
3 home runs, which isn't a ton, and 5 stolen bases, which isn't a ton. 23 walks, 23 Ks. Love that. And 18 doubles.
Nice.
So he's just a solid bat. Like, for me, like we just talked about Buxton, Jenkins, and Erod in the outfield. You throw Gabby Gonzalez as the fourth outfielder in that group, and I feel pretty good about that. Right? He's a right-handed hitter. Can't play center, but you got 3 other guys that can. To me, it's he was a top 100 prospect at one point. We didn't love it in the Polanco trade, and now he's done really well for himself in Double-A, where we all questioned, is he going to hit when he gets to Double-A? And he has absolutely raked.
So let's talk about this guy for a second, okay? Because I need to get something off my chest. This piece at Twins Daily went up at like 7:30 in the morning, and by 9 o'clock, people had compared Gabby Gonzalez to Michael Kadire, Luis Ariz, Kirby Puckett, and it was evident that people didn't necessarily read what I wrote, right? The gist of it was he's recovered his prospect shine with his performance this year. It's clearly like a really good hit tool. And when you have a prospect like him, I call him a tweener because he doesn't have a ton of power. He doesn't run well. And he has a really good throwing arm, but he doesn't necessarily play great defense. And so if you don't have those supplementary tools in place, your offense has to clear a higher bar to be a starting caliber MLB corner outfielder. And so I think my final line was something along the lines of he probably fits somewhere between a regular and a platoon bat. And everyone was so mad. That's a good outcome. I don't know why I was like so shocked that people were triggered by this Gabby Gonzalez take. Comparing any prospect to Luis Ariz is the height of irresponsibility, and anyone who does so should be ashamed of themselves. That is he's a freak. Gabby Gonzalez is not Luis Ariz. Please stop.
Theo, cut that. And
I don't.
We're clipping this one.
I don't get it. I don't get it. I mean, he's been amazing, and I think I tried to call it out in the thing. I was like, I have a hard time with this profile where it's like a very fun hit tool and not much else. And so if he keeps hitting, he will find a way to be on a major league roster in some type of way. But I think you summed it up beautifully, Jeremy. Like, he's the perfect fourth outfielder, someone you don't rely on for defense, someone who you rely on for a bat and slot him in a corner spot.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't have splits in front of me, but if he can do damage against left-handed pitching, it's going to be beautiful. So honestly, take his first year away with the Twins, and all he's done is hit. It's fantastic.
I will say one other thing for the haters who accuse me of not liking Gabby Gonzalez. He gets absolutely rave reviews from Twins folks about how he approaches hitting. Like, he is a talented kind of hitting mind, has a great kind of approach to how he thinks about the game offensively and his at-bats and all that good stuff. So he's definitely has his fans in the org too. Okay, so you had him at 11. I had him at 12. My number 11 guy, and we'll talk about where he landed for you, is Andrew Morris. Where'd you have him?
I had Morris at 13.
Okay.
I actually just flipped him this morning with the guy that I have at 12. So he was 12, and I dropped him to 13 this morning.
Okay, fair enough. So Andrew Morris currently on the shelf with the forearm strain, 63.1 innings so far at AAA, 4.41 ERA, 4.28 FIP. I think first of all, it should not be overstated in similar fashion to Zebby Matthews what an awesome development story Andrew Morris has been for the Minnesota Twins. 4th round pick out of Texas Tech in 2022. I think if Zebby wasn't in the org, he would have received a lot more kind of attention as he was coming up. But essentially got to AAA in 2 full seasons, got a little bit of a cup of coffee there last year. The concern for me, Jeremy, and you can agree or disagree. I don't know if you can get by as a major league starter with a 21.4% strikeout rate in AAA, because that's gonna erode even a little bit more. And so I think there's potentially still some work to do here when he's back healthy, when it comes to the mix, the arsenal, how it plays together, toying around with pitch shapes, all of that good stuff. And I don't think there's any rush. Like, that's perfectly fine. Usually prospects will get held up at a particular level. I just think you have to get to like 25% strikeout rate if you are going to be a viable back end starter. And that's kind of the profile I see him as kind of like a 4 or 5 type guy. What are your thoughts on Morris? Why do you have him at where you did?
So I felt pretty like my list was final, and then I was just looking through like one last thing, and I'm like, man, his K per 9 is not even 9. That was what did it for me. So when you're talking about his strikeout rate, for me that was 100% what it is. I have CJ Culpepper further down the list, but in my mind, you could flip those and maybe feel better about it. So, like I mentioned, I have Morris at 13, but only because I want to give him the benefit of the doubt that maybe the performance is injury related and that he'll be better. But yeah, I have him listed as a depth starter, but I don't know that he'll ever do that in the major leagues. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I thought that we would maybe see him if he could stay healthy this year. And I'm not there anymore on that. So I feel like this might be the high water mark. You at 11 on him. But
go to True Blood or Tom Froming. You might find the high water mark on Andrew Morris, I think. So okay. So I had Morris at 11, Gonzalez at 12.
Yeah.
You had who's your number 12?
My 12 is Kyle DeBarge.
Okay.
Let me pull up some stats unless you have them. Kyle DeBarge is currently at Cedar Rapids, batting 254, 367, 394, 6 home runs, 73 strikeouts, 54 walks. Not having a great year, but I still am a believer of DeBarge.
How many stolen bases, Jeremy? It's got to be approaching 50 at this point.
Yeah, 49 of them.
Okay.
Yeah, he's doing his thing on the base paths, and so again, I think there's upside. I would have pegged him to hit better than 254 at Cedar Rapids.
So hold on though. Let's pause right there. I'm glad you brought that up. If I can get my page to load, because this is a recent thing, and someone asked a question about this. I believe it was Isaac, who basically said, if I can organize my tabs and get my life together. Thoughts on Kyle DeBarge's steady decline in performance over the year at Cedar Rapids? 2 extra base hits in July and 1 home run in the past 2 months. Is the talent level somewhere between the first 2 months and the last 2? So let's just like very baseline splits of Kyle DeBarge, and then you can tell me what you think, Jeremy. April OPS 864, May 809, June 678, July 661. So we saw 2 awesome months and then 2 pretty bad months. What do you make of that? Like fatigue, injury, the wear of a long season.
Yeah,
he's shown that he can at least do it at this level, right? There's like a 2-month sample of him absolutely raking.
Yeah, 83 games, 315 at bats. He's never played a season that long, and never played against guys this good. So I think there's probably some truth to all of that. But for the Twins to keep him going, right? A lot of times when you have guys that start to decline, it's a reset, and he hasn't had that. So that tells me that there's something going on with the organization that they're like, no, you're good, just keep doing it. 22 years old, undersized, and I like him. If he continues to not get better, I think when preseason lists come out, he's going to be lower.
Yeah.
but I think this top 15 range is a fair spot to have him right now. I have him at 12, but you didn't tell me where you had him.
I have him at 14, which I think is like you just said, top 15, right? And so if we were to use like a golf analogy, his season has been like par. It's like 15% above average for the level. He's stolen a ton of bases. He's had 2 great months, 2 bad months. Let's see how he finishes out the season. I'm guessing now. I suppose it depends how things shake out organizationally, but it's more likely than not he just gets like a full season at high A and goes to double A next year. But I don't know that, to answer Isaac's question, I think that's a good assessment. I think that's like a good like logic model to use. If you have 2 amazing months and 2 poor ones, probably put the performance somewhere in the middle of those. And let's see if he can rebound in August, September, because Cedar Rapids will be in the playoffs. They won the first half. So I haven't like dinged DeBarge too much. Really, it's a couple of folks joining the list that have moved him down a couple of spots more than anything, and I don't know that it's kind of like panic time or super cause for concern there yet. Okay, so you had him at 12.
Yep,
or was that 13 for you?
I had Morris at 13, so we don't have your number 13.
My number 13 is Brandon Winokur. He gives me a knowing smile. So Winokur is such a difficult eval, in my opinion. Let's talk about his numbers at high A. He's hitting 231, 319, 404 in 84 games as a 20-year-old at high A, which makes him young for the level. He has hit 12 home runs already. He hit 14 last year at single A. There's a ton. That's a ton of strikeouts. It's come down though, and those are the trends and things that I find interesting that I'm excited to debate with you, because I'm going to bet that you have him a little bit lower. Where do you have Winokur? And then I'm going to kind of give you my rationale for why I left him relatively high.
I only have him at 15.
Okay, that's not crazy different.
And probably should have had him at 14, but I had to double down on something I said. So okay. 15 is where he checked in, because the things that he does well make him an exciting prospect. But then you look at the things that he doesn't do well, and that makes it a very scary prospect.
100%. But like, if you look at the context of the context of Brandon Winokur's draft, that matters in this case. It was 2023, insane prep class. They got Walker. They moved up in the lottery and had a bunch of extra money. That is the kind of thing you do with your bunch of extra money, is take a swing literally on a guy like Brandon Winokur, who's tools galore. I mean, the dude has an absolutely unbelievable arm. I didn't mention this from the jump when we talked about his numbers, but he has 21 stolen bases already. I think the things that I like about him globally are that he's just showing steady improvement both across the year and from last year to this year. So this year, OPS April 596, May 680, June 724, July 961. Like, if you see that type of improvement from a guy who's a couple of years below the average age for the level, that's pretty encouraging. And then if you look at like walk numbers, last year 8.3, this year 9.4. Strikeouts, last year 28%, this year 25%. Everything's just slowly getting a little bit better, and it's going to be a slow burn with a guy like him, but the upside is ginormous.
Yeah, what do you have as on base in like June and July? Did you say those numbers?
I don't. No, I do not. I only
his on base this year at high A.
Here we go.
31%.
Oh yeah, it's low. So on base percentage, April 297, May 304, June 276. Yikes. July 433. Okay. So we're gonna see soon if July is actually the turning of a corner, or just kind of like a freaky hot month. But he's continuing to kind of hold his head above water at the level, which I think is impressive for a prospect so young.
Yeah, so in his last 10 games, he's 23 for 39. No, that's not right. 14 for 39.
Okay, I was like, whoa.
Because I'm like, to have that OBP, I'm thinking he's got to have a bunch of walks. He's got only 3 walks in those 10 games. So, yeah, I mean, again, the ceiling's high, but the floor is especially low.
Yep.
So you could probably guess if I haven't told you my 14 yet.
Okay.
Who that would be, because he's the guy that I have right in front of Brandon Winokur.
Okay.
And that's Quentin Young.
Let's go. That's fun.
So, like I said, very, very similar prospects, enormous upside, very, very low floor. And I just think the upside on Young is better. And so I went with him 14 and Winokur 15.
Yeah, I mean, look, really, like, what is the material difference that it makes whether we're ranking a guy 14th or 15th, right? I think the top 10 is where you can really pick holes in things. I gave the nod to Winokur because he's shown above average performance as a professional at 2 different levels. I think if you just want to go with like raw tools and upside, you can definitely make a case for Young. But like, even if you look at their combine performances comparable, like they were hitting balls in BP around the same exit velo. So the raw power is kind of similar. Like how high, because someone else asked this question, I think it was Josiah, so we can answer this quick. How high is Quentin Young on your list of draftees that you're most excited to see in 2026? Like, who's the guy you're most pumped to see professionally? I think Josiah said his was Riley Quick. Who's your guy?
Oh, Quentin Young for sure.
Yeah,
because him and the JC pitcher,
Matt Barr.
Yeah. But I don't think it's Young, and it's not even close, because it's the super high upside, loud tools, big kid with dreadlocks that's going to swing at everything, and it's going to be fun. I want to see what happens now. Like,
but you're not gonna probably.
He's got to play this year a little bit, right?
We'll see.
You don't think
maybe?
So?
I don't know.
The hitters get a shot. I would like to get him down to Fort Myers, get him in. I think things that Winokur does better. He's better on his run tools are better. Winokur.
Yep.
And defensively, Winokur is kind of a unicorn in that he can play anywhere. I think Young is limited to third base.
Yep.
But I do think that the hit and the power kind of grade out similarly. But I think that Young's got maybe just a better chance to get there. But again, we're talking when BA does their prospect handbook and they do the risk, we're talking on both these guys.
Extreme
risk.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So
and that's fun. That's fun. So I had Young at 17, a little bit lower, but within that range. I think right now we're not really disagreeing unless you're kind of 5 spots away from each other at this point, in my opinion. So comparable. My 15th guy who I haven't shared is CJ Culpepper. A forgotten pitching prospect in a farm system full of them, in my opinion. He's been limited with injuries this year, but it's been 16.2 innings at AA. I want to say a 1.62 ERA, FIPS higher than that, 3.38. It's really good strikeout numbers. The walks are also too high and too many. I still think so. CJ Culpepper has had one big developmental challenge since he got drafted. And if you look at his data, his velocity erodes significantly times through the order. Like not just like what you might expect, it's like problematically declining. So if he can't hold velocity, he's not going to be a starter forever. He has nasty stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He throws in the upper 90s and moves all over the place. I think that's been one of the challenges, is kind of like learning to corral that and figure out the mix and where to throw it and all that stuff. And so he's a bit more of a slower burn with that and the injuries than the other 3 of the college names. I don't know if we'll talk about him, but Corey Lewis has been really good at St. Paul recently. But Culpepper's kind of a forgotten guy, and I just like the arm talent and the stuff I think is really good. So did he make your top 20?
He was 16 for me.
Oh, there you go.
And really the gap between Morris and Culpepper is not a lot. And I don't know that we'll talk about Corey Lewis, and I've been a huge Corey Lewis guy. He hasn't pitched enough for me to have him on this list, but those three guys really could be interchangeable, totally different, but interchangeably listed here. And it's crazy because we talked about those three and Zebby, like that was the class, right? Those four guys. And here we have Zebby being a pretty regular starter for the Twins, and these other three kind of hitting that rough spot. So yeah, I'd Culpepper at 16. Agree with everything you said. I do think that he starts a number of games for the Twins in his career.
Okay.
Or for another major league team if he ends up not being with the Twins. But I do think that he ends up as a back end starter. And it's fun, like the long hair and the flow, and
I like it. The art, dude. CJ Culpepper's action, his pitching mechanics are so weird. He has the shortest arm action I think I've ever seen in a pitcher.
On an aside,
so
speaking of weird actions, how about the hitter?
Peyton Carr.
Does he always do that?
Yeah.
He just starts with his leg up in the air.
Yep.
That's insane.
He's just ready. He's loaded, man. He's ready to go.
Absolutely insane. All right, moving on.
Okay, so I think we're on my 16. My 16 is Ricardo Olivar, who I believe has a place in the top 20 for me. Here's why. Despite my best efforts to convince everyone that he is not a catcher, he is playing catcher, and the Twins do not have necessarily a viable MLB catcher, and I don't think his defense is especially getting rave reviews, but he's holding his own as a hitter, and he's really improved in a second go round at AA. So last year, he was bad at AA as a 22-year-old at 81 WRC plus. So it was just really, really rough. This year as a 23-year-old at AA, much better, close to 70 games now, walking more than 11% of the time, just a 16% strikeout rate, hitting 274, 359, 436, 121 WRC plus, some power, 11 home runs. Just does like a little bit of everything well as a hitter. And I think he started like 30-ish games at catcher. If you have a bat like that can catch, even if it's poor defensively, that's pretty valuable. And so Olivar for the rebound season for me is at 16. Did he make your list?
Yeah, he's actually a guy that I've not been as high on because I never believed that he would catch once we got to this level.
Still doing it.
He's been catching quite a bit. So I have him at 17, which puts our top 17 the same.
Let's go. We're spending too much time together. That's disgraceful.
And so I do like the idea that he'll continue to catch it, and maybe a conversation for another day, but Vasquez, he gone, right?
Someone's gone.
Well, Vasquez is going to be a free agent. So he's definitely gone, right?
I thought you meant at the deadline.
Well, I mean, potentially he could be gone, and there's going to be a need for a second catcher. And none of these guys that are on my list are actually legitimate full-time catchers. Like maybe this Pareda guy that they just signed, but Gasper, he's a third catcher type, and Olivar is a third catcher type. And so if you have two third catcher types, you can maybe just get by. So I would like to see how he, progresses through this year and into St. Paul, but I feel like he's got to be a call away next year.
Yep.
And if he hits well enough, if he hits what he's hitting right now as a backup catcher,
that
gets some time as a right-handed hitting corner outfielder.
Yep.
Until Gabriel Gonzalez takes his job, I think that works perfectly fine. So, he's a really solid organizational depth piece with a tiny bit of upside and some defensive versatility. So that's good enough to get him 17 for me.
Let's go.
What are the chances that these next three are the same? I would say slim.
No, I'm going to be so annoyed if they are. That would
They won't be.
Okay. Who's your 18th?
My 18th is another catcher.
Okay. Khadim Diaw.
Khadim Diaw.
He's 20 for me.
Who's hurt, but I think he's a legitimate catcher. Hold on, I got to timestamp this. He's a legitimate catcher who is a few promotions away, hits well enough. I think that there's the chance that he could be at some point a tandem catcher. So drafted in the 3rd round last year, batting 300 at Cedar Rapids before an injury. Not a ton of power. 3 home runs in 38 games, 4 stolen bases, 19 walks, 26 strikeouts, and can play behind the plate. So that's a top 20 prospect for me.
100%. I mean, let's put it this way. If you can get a guy to the majors with a 50 hit tool who plays catcher, that's insanely valuable.
Yep.
I will, this give me a chance to speak on something because a bunch of people asked on draft content in the comments about why didn't the Twins take a catcher? They never take a catcher. I asked around about that, and here's what I got. The bar for catcher in the draft is challenging because there's a supply and demand issue, right? Where depending on where you pick in the 1st round, there are likely going to be only a couple of 1st round caliber talent guys. Like this year it was what? Bodine, Stevenson, and Ike Irish, who now everyone is convinced is not going to be a catcher.
Right.
Unless that fit of where you're picking lines up with the value that you have on that player, you're going to either overdraft someone or you're better waiting till later. And even later, you've transitioned already from a guy who we're confident is going to be a catcher to a hitter who stands behind the plate sometimes. And so people are always really mad about why the Twins don't take catchers, but I think it's just generally a tricky supply and demand issue. And that adds value to Diaw for me and Olivar. The fact that they're at least in some capacity stand behind the plate, at least in the medium term. Diaw was 20 for me. So I'll give you my 18 is Billy Amick. Did he make your list or no?
He was considered. He would have been, if we would have went farther, he would have been 22.
Okay, fair enough.
He did drop off line.
So Amick has missed some time this year with injuries, played 39 games. I think Fangraph's a day or so behind is what I'm looking at. 293, 400, 401, 12% walk rate, 27% strikeout, 129 WRC+. Here's my problem. He doesn't hit for power.
What's the deal? 2
home runs. And power is the calling card of this profile. If you're going to have a 28% strikeout rate at high A, you're going to have a 38% strikeout rate by the time you get to the majors. And obviously I'm making that number up, but it's going to increase as you go. And so power is the calling card. I think there's little defensive value. And so
he's a first baseman.
If he's not going to slug, there's not going to be a lot of value in this profile. And so that's why I dropped him, I don't know, not super significantly, but from I think he was in the 10 to 15 range on my last list, and now he's at 18, and I think he's got to pick up the power. Otherwise, you can start having some concerns.
Yeah, I mean, he's a first baseman who has 2 home runs in 46 games. That's not going to do it. And I because I started to slot guys in, and I just kept moving him down, and I'm looking at his numbers, and it's not that he's not hitting. He's batting 297, getting on base 40% of the time. But if you're going to be a light hitting, the singles hitting first baseman, that's not good. But I mean, who knows if he turns around and ends up hitting 20 home runs this year or 15? Yeah, so that's why he fell off. 100% why he fell off for me. So that we will have difference in our top 20.
Thank God. Okay, so I have one more guy on my list, and you have one more guy. Who's yours?
I have 2.
You're 2. I'm sorry. Okay.
So your 18 was Amick. My 18 was Diaw. My 19 is a pitcher.
Me too.
Jose Olivares. Is that your guy?
It is not my guy, but I like that you put him on there.
So I actually, Olivares and Bojorquez were pretty much the same for me. And I don't even remember what the separator was. But Olivares, 22 years old at Cedar Rapids.
Can throw upper 90s.
58 innings right now, 70 strikeouts. Walks quite a bit of guys. And I think, but I think less than Bojorquez.
Bojorquez has definitely come along with his control recently. He started really slow, if I'm remembering correctly, and then it's kind of evened it out. Olivares tends to be a little bit up and down, but the stuff is just electric.
Above average fastball, 60 grade fastball, and I mean they're to me they're very similar, but I think Olivares for me just a little bit higher. So I had him at 19.
Yep. I dig it.
And now we each have one more to share.
Okay, so mine is I put a guy at 19, and I think it's fair to say I could probably put other guys ahead of him. Like, you're considering a lot of names here. Olivares is definitely one. If you want to be aggressive and talk about someone like Santiago Castellanos, who's super, super interesting DSL pitcher. Denny Andrade is a guy you could consider. I put James Ellwanger here just because I'm super intrigued of the arm talent. And it's kind of a throw-in fun spot for me because he hasn't thrown a professional pitch. But this is a guy who's been up to 100. He can really spin a baseball. The Twins signed him today for $1 million, which is about $110,000 over slot out of DBU. That's same college that Dasan Hill was committed to before the Twins signed him away. I just think that with Ellwanger, the strike throwing is the issue, or will be the thing to monitor, not is the issue. That'll be the thing to monitor. There's two versions of him succeeding. One is that he's a high leverage bullpen arm. Great. That's a good outcome for your third round pick or wherever he was. Another is that he puts it together, and then you're talking about another name ascending into that list of guys who could be kind of dudes in a major league rotation. And I think he's pretty far from that. He's pretty raw, but the arm talents, I mean, it's a college pitcher who throws 100 miles an hour. That's exciting. So I put him at 19 as a fun throwing. So he's another guy who I'm excited to. It took everything in me not to put Matt Barr there. Just for fun. We should point out though, the Barr is like a high school pick. He's 19.
Right.
And so that makes him very different from the rest of the guys that they drafted. But Ellwanger was my last one, just as a fun one at 19.
So my last guy, someone you just mentioned, Danny Andrade. Missed a lot of last season, has been young at every level he's been at now, is healthy, not super production yet this year, but I do believe a guy that can stick at shortstop and hit a little bit, run a little bit, maybe hit for some power. I mean, there's not going to be a carrying tool right now, but he's batting 240 at Cedar Rapids with 8 home runs, strikes out quite a bit. He's got 81 strikeouts, 14 stolen bases. So just a guy that just kind of got lost, but he's still only 21 years old. Signed in 2021 for $2.2 million, and just not great luck health-wise. But I do think that getting him back in the swing of things this year, promoting him up to Wichita next year, and he'll have a shot to potentially be a major leaguer. So again, at this point, like you said, you could go 100 different directions. The one thing I didn't do is I didn't take we've talked about Jose Rodriguez, we've talked about the Beltre, we've talked about Mercedes. There's been so many names. They've all fallen off the list, but Andrade was the one that had stuck for me.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that makes a ton of sense. Okay, let us push pause for today, but I do want to quickly preview what's coming up because the trade deadline is approaching. We want to dig in a little bit on that today.
We should just say our 30-second spiel.
Okay, let's do it then. I'm just going to preview though before you do that. Our intention as a podcast is to cover any major trades the Twins make with a really heavy lens on prospects in the farm system. That's always been one of the things we've wanted to do. We've only gotten to do it once. Jorge Polanco trade in like January 2024. And so if the Twins make a big trade, we will hop on here in some configuration, talk about it, dig into it, especially touch on the prospect lens. And I think after the trade deadline, we will revisit this exercise and go 1 through 20 again. Not maybe say in the same level of detail, but really focus on if the Twins acquire any guys of note and of value, how might we slot them in to the farm system as a whole? But what's your approach, dude? I guess that's our last listener question, is one from me to you. How are you approaching the trade deadline? What you doing?
So usually I'm pretty hesitant to be like full on sell. And this year I would take that approach, and I would have pretty much anybody available. Now, with the exceptions of you'd be selling really low on Bailey Ober. I'm keeping him, right? Lopez is hurt. That would be tough to pull. I'm keeping him. My younger pitchers, Zebi, Festa, Sim, I'll keep those guys. I will listen on Ryan. And
what's the bar that needs to be cleared to deal him?
I mean, I would say
it's so high.
The return has to be better than Berrios's was,
for sure.
And that was two, and that was what they have, a year and a half of control. I'm looking for someone that would help in the majors right now. Younger, a team's top prospect, and another probably top 3 or 4 prospect, depending on the team. I wouldn't give him away. I don't think his value changes a lot between now and the winter. And so you could get a haul for him when everybody's going to buy it at the winter meetings. Paddock, he's going to go. And I like Chris Paddock. And if Chris Paddock wanted to return to the Twins on a whatever deal next year, I would certainly not hang up the phone, because I do like Chris Paddock. The bullpen, I would literally trade anybody, and for Duran or Jackson, it would have to be a ton. I think what Nightingale say today, they're looking at 2 top 100 prospects, and I'm looking at the Dodgers list, and I'm like, well, I would consider Dalton Rushing a top 100 prospect.
For sure, he counts.
And if you want to give me Jackson Ferris, or you want to give me Zaire Hope, or you want to give me, but that would be my ask, because DePaula I think is probably better than Hope, but I would take for either of those guys, I would take Rushing and Ferris, and I would be like, that's probably good. I would probably have a higher price tag on Louis Varland than the market would pay for Louis Varland. Coulomb can go, but I would re-sign Coulomb next year if he wanted to come back. I would list on Brock Stewart because I think his arm is a ticking time bomb, but he's quality when he's healthy. I don't know what teams would give up for the Cole Sands of the world, but I think Cole Sands has value on a good team, and to play the other guys, whatever. I would listen on Jeffers, but I would have a higher value than what the market would pay. I'm definitely moving Vasquez. I like Ty France. Ty France can go. I would listen on Clemens because I think this is an aberration. Keaschall's my second baseman. Castro, I like the guy. I'm trading Castro. I would keep Lewis. I would keep Lee. I'm keeping Correa. I would listen on either of Larnach or Wallner, just to see, because they're and Buxton's my center fielder, and Bader's got to go because someone will trade for Bader. It's going to be like the Brian Dozier deadline all over again. Everybody's.
I just have to say I love how we said 30-second sell off, and then Jeremy goes through the entire roster of who we keep in, who's going.
That was my 30 seconds. It was 300 seconds.
So you want the number 1 pick in 2026 is what I'm hearing.
Hey, if that happens, my chances go up. People aren't going to Target Field right now, right? They're not going to go to Target Field
unless there's a Nelly concert.
Hell yeah. People aren't going, right?
I'm sorry to burst your bubble real quick, but none of what you said is going to happen.
All the free agents are going to go.
100%.
Yes.
I agree.
And
I agree with you.
They're going to listen on Ryan. They're going to listen on Duran. They're going to listen on Jax.
Jeremy, in the last 20 years, the average number of top 100 prospects traded at the deadline is 2.4 since like 2020, 25 years. Now, obviously, there's like fluctuations there, but the math just ain't math. And if the Twins are asking for 2 top 100 guys, I think by BA's list, there were 0 top 100 prospects traded last year. Obviously, a down year for that. But if the Twins are asking for 2 top 100 guys for Jax or Duran, which like great, like have whatever asking price you want when you're a week out from the deadline. I'll just go to St. Louis Cardinals and get Halsey for 1 top 100 prospect and another guy. And so my wondering is like, I put a question out there a couple of days ago of like, what is the tipping point at which if you sell up to this point, you can still be really good in 2026. But if you sell beyond it, then you're struggling to fill holes in your roster with quality guys. And the consensus answer seemed to be sell all the impending free agents plus one of the 2 elite relievers because you could potentially get a haul for it. Leave Joe Ryan because how are you going to replace that in the rotation? That seems to be the consensus. That feels like the most likely outcome if they sell more than their impending free agents. I just don't think like it sounds like the Twins asking prices, both historically and now, for their high quality players that they would consider part of their core are off-putting to the 2 teams to the point of like they don't engage or aren't going to engage the Twins to that degree. And that's a hunch. I'm not saying that's true, but I'm curious to see how that plays out.
Yeah, and I don't think that's wrong at all. But I think you're messing up if you're not listening.
Agreed.
Right? And people are definitely Joe Ryan is the best starting pitcher available.
Easily.
And so you can get a ton. Now, the Brewers didn't get a ton for Corbin Burns, in my opinion, but you're like, yeah, that's a haul. Would you take that haul for Joe Ryan?
Is there? Yeah, I don't know.
Because I don't.
I don't because you've got what do you have of Ryan 2.5 seasons? That was a straight 1-year rental of Burns, right? Was that an off season? It was an off season trade. It was 1 full season.
Yeah, because they got the
no. Yep. Then absolutely not. No.
But would you? I mean, who's right now? Who's like the hottest rumor? Like who's calling for Joe Ryan?
Boston. There's just no way that it would be like Duran plus one of their top 100 guys plus a couple more pieces. Or if it's the Cubs, it's like Ballesteros. What did Cody put a piece up today at Twins Daily? Ballesteros and Jackson Wiggins. I don't think that gets it done, but I think that's the beginning of a framework that could get it done.
Those are 2 top 100 guys.
100%. I'm saying for Joe, that's the price for the reliever. The price for Joe Ryan at 2.5 years is going to be like 2 top 100 guys plus a regular MLB contributor plus probably a little bit more.
Great. And you have to listen to that.
Agreed. Right? I just don't think. I think we now live in a world where teams, and I think this is borne out in the data, teams overvalue their own farm system so much. And I get that because you drafted those guys and you worked on developing those guys. And if you're good at it and you're like the Dodgers who never have a bunch of picks in the draft or a bunch of money, but always have like a top 5 farm system, you have reason to be enamored with your own prospects. But for a lot of organizations, they shouldn't be, and they should be more willing to trade away guys. But we just live in a world where people are in love with their own hype when it comes to the guys they draft and develop.
Yep. Yeah. Does Ballesteros have any shot to be a catcher?
That's probably a question from Matt. I haven't seen him play defense enough, but I think like if we're talking about a catcher, there's really only 4 possible candidates there's only 4 matches for a catching prospect with playoff teams. It's Ballesteros. It's Jefferson Cairo from the Brewers, Harry Ford from the Mariners, or Dalton Rushing from the Dodgers. Those are the only 4 guys that make sense because they would want someone who's proximal to the majors, and all of those guys are in AAA. Those are the only 4 that make sense. So if the Twins want a catcher, it's either Brewers, Mariners, Dodgers, or Cubs. Take your pick.
That's fair. I think we can certainly we could talk about this ad nauseum, right? And that's what makes it fun. But I would be far more open for business this year than ever before. And part of that was the last year they sold off, like that's what brought Duran into the organization.
Yep.
He was one of 3 guys they got for Eduardo Escobar.
Yep.
Like they got Eduardo Escobar in the Francisco Liriano trade.
Yep.
They got Liriano in the Przinsky trade. Like the
trade tree is never ending going back to Przinsky.
Yeah.
Right. And they traded Przinsky because they drafted Mauer. So I think that you gotta strike before the iron gets really cold.
Yeah. And I do also think there's a strong argument to be made that you just need to shake up the organizational inertia a little bit. In a way that a big move would help with, right? This hitting core is not it at the moment. It's just really not. And so if we can do some rotating from dealing from a position of strength like the bullpen, I think you can make a strong argument for that. Next week on Wednesday, it is going to be the eve of the trade deadline. So we're going to be back with another episode. We will either be recapping things the Twins have done or speculating on rumors, which would be even more fun, pending Jeremy's schedule. If there are major trades in between now and then, we will absolutely cover them sooner than that.
Okay. That sounds good.
About to get complained out off air. All right. Thank you guys for checking out the show. We sure appreciate it. We will be back with another episode next week. Could be a different roster by then. Hope you guys have a good one. Catch you next Wednesday.